Hello and welcome to the Pretty Good Gaming Podcast, Episode 3. My name is Mike Williams. Today I'm joined by Mr. Gareth Evans.
Hello there.
And Jake Kolkowski.
Hello.
Kolkowski. Sorry, Jake.
Well done, guys.
Today we're talking about Horizon Zero Dawn. We've all played it, actually, and we've all got a hell of a lot to say about it. It just feels like the Game of the Year race is picking up very quickly this year compared to last year. Yeah, there's a lot of debate about it already, which, a few days into March is pretty good going.
It is pretty good going. To coin a phrase there, Mike. Well done.
What do you guys make of it so far?
Well, for a game to capture my attention for over 20 hours in this day and age is rare, and Horizon does this at a canter, I would say.
I'd agree with that, definitely.
It's a cracking game. It's filled with loads of open world type things. It's very, I don't know.
It's weird, isn't it?
It pulls loads of things from different places, and it does the core things of open world so well. The culmination of it is something quite special, I think. Yeah,
it pulls stuff from so many places that I would consider boring by now. Assassin's Creed, Far Cry being the main culprits, really, and it takes a hell of a lot from The Witcher. It just seems like it shouldn't be entertaining because I've played all this stuff before, but I feel like they're freshening up in a hell of a, interesting ways. Everything, like the towers is a classic example where rather than just a static building or, like a tree or some kind of, static object, it's a moving, giant, walking animal dinosaur machine thing that is visually, the first few times you see these are just breathtaking visually the first time you see them. And you hear them first, you hear the steps of these long necks, tall necks, whatever they're called. You hear them just clomping around in the distance. You're like, shit, what's that? You go up and you investigate and it's like, oh, God, that's incredible. And so that I feel like they've just managed to do things that are boring and, pretty trad by now. They've just made them interesting, which is pretty, it's a big achievement,
I think it's a real art to keep a trope like climb a vantage point, which is something normally as boring as climb a tower or an outpost or a mountain, and they've turned it into a living, a robot's living, that's another question for another day, but a giant robot that you've got to crawl up, climb up, and normally riddled with surrounding enemies, so you've got to stealth your way through. There's a lot to it. I think with it being an open world game, it's always going to be categorized with other hugely open world games, and there's a lot of them at the moment, so to really stand out is an art in itself. But you can see the influences with the other games. The Witcher, how you've got the Witcher senses with Horizon.
Mechanically identical, really. The way that you come across something, you switch on your focus or your Witcher sense, you see the thing, and then you follow the thing, you follow the trail to where you need to go. It's exactly the same. Even down to the way that she mutters to herself, trucks running through the mud. Exactly like Geralt. It's stylistically very similar.
Yeah, I think the fact that it's memorable already, like you're going to remember climbing up a giant robot. You're going to remember fighting your first flying dinosaur and all these different things.
I think the first time I fought a sawtooth, which is very early on, it's 2 or 3 hours in, it's a big kind of, it feels like Dark Souls like almost, where it's this monster, you've got to take it down a certain way, you've got to put your trip caster thing, you use the tools that you've got, you can't just shoot it or hit it with your spear, you've got to use the tools that you've got to take it down, and it's a great achievement. It feels amazing when you bring it down.
The combat mechanics, it's not just like Ghost Recon or whatever, you've got one weapon at your disposal and you're just shooting it. Like you've got 4 different weapons, you've got various different ways that you can go about taking out the enemies as they rush. They can swamp you can get 5 or 6 at a time. You've got this tripcaster thing which kind of blows them as a trap on the floor. You've got your bow and arrow, which it's just general bow and arrow. You've got the rope caster, which you can bring enemies down.
I love that thing.
Stop them. And there's the bombs or the catapult, basically. Yeah. What this does differently is that you upgrade your weapons just like any other game, but there's not too many of them. Like there's 3 different upgrades for each one, and they add different functionality. Like you've got the shock. You've got the
elemental effects, aren't they? Really,
And I think the best part about the weapons for me is the modifications. Where you can actually change what the function of your weapon does with these modifications. I don't know how far you guys have gotten in, but you get these modifications that drastically change the effect or the damage or the elemental effects of your weapons. And I come across one situation where my weapon my bow just wasn't working. It was like I was approached by these, the flying ones.
Yeah.
And I had to change my modifications on the spot in order to take down this situation, and that was a strategical decision that I had to make, and it's those kind of decisions that those kind of problems that you have and that you come out the far end and you think you're a genius because of it, and it's them kind of things that it makes you feel like a genius in some ways.
That is crucial to why it feels so fresh. I mean, I know the setting itself and everything is very fresh. I mean, it's prehistoric but super futuristic and everything, at the same time. That's obviously, that hasn't been done before. Whether or not robot dinosaurs is has any artistic merit is something else. But it's an original setting. But the gameplay, the very meaty, mechanical, everything that you actually do, what the buttons do when you press them, is quite fresh feeling, because you've got the bow and arrow, which is kind of a shooting mechanic, I guess, but it's not like The Division or Ghost Recon Wildlands where you're spraying ammo and stuff. You just you got to choose quite carefully where your arrow goes. You got to aim for specific parts of the body and stuff. That's the very basic core thing of what the combat is. And then that developed with all these, like you mentioned, like the elemental effects, the traps, the all the different tools that you've got to use are so interesting and different to use. I can't remember the last time I played a game where I had to try and trip up the thing that I'm trying to kill, so that and then hurt it. It's quite cool. It's quite original.
Hands down, the Tripcaster is the best.
Oh, it's weapon. Awesome.
Well, I mean, what's funny, you mentioned Ghost Recon and The Division, and they're advertised as tactical shooters. This game features more combat tactics than both of them combined.
Nailed it,
exactly.
There's a lot of strategy involved, combat strategy. I'm quite a complacent player. Normally, no matter what the game is, I'll find my favourite weapon, whether it's a sniper or a bow and arrow or something like that, and then I'll stick to it. I'll try and master that. This game really did force me out of that, and I was having to use a combination of different weapons on the fly, and I was popping up my weapon wheel and changing from my bow and arrow to the Tripcaster and things like that. You scan the enemies for weaknesses, and some of them are weak to certain types of elements or certain types of attacks, like piercing arrows, or there's like heavy blows, so you use your spear on them. It's a nice mix, so you can be, like Gareth was saying, there's a lot of dinosaurs could be near you at one time, and you couldn't take them all down the same way. So you'll have to flip back and forth, a lot of dodging and rolling, and then it really does make you feel accomplished at the end of it. You feel like you've come out of a scrap, and normally, if you're like me, you've got low health anyway, and you're like, that was close, and it gives a great sense of achievement to each battle. It makes every battle, I don't want to say memorable, but I'll say meaningful.
That's right. That's the right word, and that's where the Dark Souls kind of element comes into it. Aside from fighting big monsters, that's where it can. Like when you beat something in Dark Souls, you're like, yes, I beat you. It's not like it doesn't feel like the game did it, on its own, like Assassin's Creed. It's quite easy to take people out in Assassin's Creed, for example, but it feels like an achievement a little bit when you do take these big monsters out. But what I really love about this as well is the way all of these different things are introduced to you over in the first kind of 10 hours, and beyond that, it reminds me of Half-Life 2 in a lot of the ways it introduces mechanics to you, especially in the tutorial. I love the tutorial in this game. It's the best tutorial I've played in years, I think, just because of the way it tells you a story, teaches you all these, all the ways to be a hunter and everything you need to do to survive, I guess. But it does it in a way that makes sense in the story. And you learn all these things, and it feels very simple and intuitive when you're doing it. But then, as you've been discussing, when you start combining that stuff and you use it in different ways, and it's built up with modifications and stuff.
You could describe a lot of games these days as repetitive. Yeah. The combat is so good that it'll carry you through those parts where you think, oh, this could be repetitive, but I'm enjoying it so much, it doesn't matter. And like you said, with like drip feeding your the tutorial through a story, it doesn't feel repetitive. You talk about game like Neo, like we did recently, and that gameplay in that was so good. It does get repetitive eventually, but it's so good that it carries you through. Yeah. But games like Ghost Recon, it is repetitive, full stop, and it's not it's not enjoyable enough to carry most people through.
It manages to keep it fresh. Normally, I've exhausted that's a cool mechanic. That's how I think normally the first 2 hours of a game. I'm still discovering little things into this game now, 30 hours in, and I'm going, I've not seen that before. That's really what keeps me going, knowing that there's still more surprises. That's the thing. The game's got surprises with that pacing.
But once you've once you've discovered everything, will you find yourself getting bored of it? Will you be able to replay it? And that's another question I've got for you as well, is once the main mystery or is solved, as in the main storyline, is it going to get boring? And that's what I fear for a sequel. It's what's carrying me through at this point a lot of the time is the story and the mystery, and I want to get to the end of it. But will they have that again in the sequel? I find that a lot of times with TV shows as well. It's like once the main mystery is revealed, it kind of goes off the boil.
To me, it comes down to what their plan is for release after this. Because if it's like Assassin's Creed and we'll get another one next year, then it probably will be boring. It'll probably be, but I doubt that'll happen. Hopefully they'll give us 3 years now. Not bring another one. Not even think about bringing another one out for another 6 months. Start development on the sequel, because a sequel is pretty inevitable. The way PlayStation have been talking about Aloy as an icon, as we've covered on this channel, it just comes down to how they manage it at this point. Like they got to just put it on ice for a little bit, release some DLC, and leave it for a couple of years.
Obviously, they're lucky enough to have plenty of cool dinosaurs.
Sounds
weird saying that, but like a Stegosaurus or like a Brontosaurus, you could make a robot version of all these cool dinosaurs.
Cashed in all of their dinosaurs.
But what I'm saying is that novelty in the first one that we're experiencing now with the story and the whole lore and the whole dinosaurs and that aspect of it, that's going to wear off for a sequel. Like they need something fresh, surely.
Yeah,
I know I'm looking far into the future now, but will it suffer because of that? Because do they need to keep coming up?
I don't think it'll suffer, because it's not just the. I mean, the world building and everything is great, and the freshness of it is great, but it's still has borrowed from everything. So it's not like it's completely brand new, because it still has borrowed a lot of stuff, as we've already discussed. And also, it's just that it's so unbelievably polished. I haven't experienced any performance problems. I mean, I know that's useless information for everyone who has, but from my point of view, it's a very accomplished, complete, finished product. That's why reviewers got it like a week and a half early or whatever. That's why the reviewers
were so confident with it,
because it was finished. It was a finished product, and they were confident in it. So I think that's part of it's just so enjoyable to play moment to moment. Nothing is detracting from it in terms of bugs or whatever. And everything, all the mechanics are well balanced and everything. It feels like enjoyable to play, and there's no glaring issues. I think that is part of the reason why it's so enjoyable as well. That's why it's been so successful as well.
I mean, with it being repetitive, like let's take Elder Scrolls for example. If there was an Elder Scrolls every year, people would get bored of it, because it's like a huge open world, some side quests, some people who look like cats, whatever. But because there's like 5 years in between, you craved a new one. And you can use graphical advances, hardware things to your advantage. So if they didn't make a Horizon game for another 3 or 4 years, they could do the exact same formula. Maybe, I don't know, make it like a Hawaiian setting with more water, because they don't really use much water in the game.
No, that's right. Yeah.
They could change the dinosaurs up, have better graphics, and it would probably not feel repetitive. But if they did a Horizon next year, I think what you're saying, Gareth, would be totally the case. It would be like, it's just this again. But if that's what happens when you make people wait a couple of years. Like, we know GTA 6 is going to be like all the others. You're going to be in a city, you're going to be able to bash prostitutes to death with baseball bats, and you're going to be able to crash into 16-year-old kids in helicopters, and they won't bounce off the floor.
Well, it's normally them crashing into me, really.
Yeah, exactly. But
I'm just minding my business.
Yeah, exactly. But it's like, because it's it's a lot of time between, it's not going to feel repetitive. Red Dead Redemption 2, we know we're going to have some rootin' tootin', saloon shoot 'em up action in this, the same as the first one probably, but because it's been so long, everybody's excited for it, and I think that's the real trick. It's all about the timing and the execution, I think.
I think the shooting dudes in the face is just such a mechanic, such a widely used gameplay thing now, that any game that offers me something different to that, robot dinosaurs or whatever, that's it's still going to be interesting to me, and it still is now. It's so much more interesting now than anything else I've got on my PlayStation, library or whatever, because it's so different. It's combat, but it's not any kind of combat that I'm used to. It's all different, as we discussed, the tactical element of it and everything.
The gameplay will hold up, but whether the second game is going to make a narrative is intriguing as the first one, which I think is the fear. I don't know. I can't say. I doubt it though, because we're gonna know it's gonna be out of the gate unless they do something really interesting.
They've pulled the blinder with the setting, because it can make things that are interesting, or anything that is like banal and boring today, they can make it interesting in the future. So without wanting to give away minor kind of spoilers or whatever, they'll mention a ring of steel or whatever, and in your mind you're like, oh, that's probably like some sort of like stadium or something like that. and then you go there and you know what do you know, it is a stadium, but it's the way they can present things that are familiar to us. You know, it's interesting because they don't know what it is. They don't know what it was. It's just like a ruin to them. But we knew what that was. You know.
Yeah, there's a funny like side quest. This is a really really minor spoiler where there's this guy and he's trying to collect vessels for the old ones.
Yeah.
And they're just cups.
Yeah.
But he thinks that they're used as some sort of spiritual vessel. You know.
Yeah, we haven't touched on that a lot, though. The world and
that's right.
how good the world is and how like there's religion in it, which our protagonist is very skeptical about.
I love that.
And there's that like skeptical side of her. It's really such a wonderful world. I mean, I've been playing on a PlayStation 4 Pro, and I've played it on the regular PlayStation as well, but still, the graphics are phenomenal.
Yeah.
The world itself is just so rich. It's like full of tiny little details. Yeah. There's like a tank or something strewn to the side that's been overgrown and stuff. There's just so many little details in it that makes it so... And it's fun. It's one of the best worlds I've played.
Yeah, it's so... I mean, me and Mike have been in photo mode, and it's the first time I've ever ventured into photo mode.
I'm not a photo mode kind of guy, really. But
it's a beautiful world, and the different terrains all really shine. They're all so different, even down to the grass and the leaves and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It's so different. It's probably the most well thought out open world I can remember.
In terms of design, I think I'd agree with that. Artistically, the way it actually looks, but that's why it is so beautiful. I think not only is it incredibly the fidelity of the graphics are very great quality graphics. Everything looks amazing. All the textures look great, but that's not why it looks great to me. I think it's because of what you're looking at, what they're showing you is actually interesting. It's like. It's just things that you're not normally shown. You're used to things like medieval castles and villages and ruined post-apocalyptic worlds and stuff like that. But this is post-apocalyptic, but kind of prehistoric, that jungle, dinosaur, mountainous region in the beginning. It's what is it? It's so you're surprised. You're constantly surprised by what it's showing you.
Yeah.
But it looks great. I think the character models look great. I've seen a few people say they look kind of plasticky or rubbery, whatever. I have to disagree with that.
I have to disagree with you with the storytelling aspect. I found a couple of instances where I was like, nah, that character wouldn't do that. Based on the information that we've got by this character, I don't want to give away any spoilers. I don't want to discuss it at length here, but the story itself, overarching story, fantastic, and I like where it's going with the mystery side of things. But the way that it's telling that story is another. Yeah, I don't know. It's just like I don't want to seem like we're being overly positive about this game. So if I've got something critical to say, I want to say it. And this is kind of where it kind of pulls apart for me. There are like a few other glitches for me, like where you're talking to a character and there's like jump cuts in between, like it zooms right in on his face really quickly.
That feels like a decision to me, though. You mentioned that the other day, and I was thinking about it. It's like I think they probably let it run without the jump cuts, and it probably was quite boring. Like it was quite.
Too samey, like
it's just a character, that's quite statically looking at you.
I can understand that, but for me as a player to notice it and feel like it's a bit disjointed, that probably was a bad decision on their part if it was a decision. But I mean, there are a couple of other things that are minor that I would criticise it for. But it's all about the fun for me. If I'm having fun playing the game, it doesn't matter about these little glitches and stuff like that. I'm having enough fun to forgive the little problems of storytelling that I feel that there is, and all the rest of it. And like I said, I played it for over 20 hours. So.
I mean, I'm as big a fan of The Witcher as you'll find, right? But the way The Witcher actually handles, it's kind of a little bit clunky, or at least it was when it first came out. The Witcher 3 now, I'm to be specific. And that's held up as the great, one of the greatest games ever by me. I'm in that crowd. I think it's incredible. But I just overlook a lot of the things that I wasn't too happy with. They actually improved the way that Geralt actually walks. They changed the controls. They added an option in the menu because it was a bit weird on controllers. Like he just kind of seemed to step a little bit too far when so they addressed that kind of thing. There's nothing like that in Horizon because it's so
fluid,
polished. If you when I'm looking at things that are problems in it, the main one that leaps out at me is the stealth system, which is incredibly generous. It lets you get away with a hell of a lot. You can stealth kill people, and one of the other bad guys will watch you do it, and just not react.
Yeah, that's like the Mafia 3 thing. You can whistle them over towards you, and then they just line them up and just kill them as they come in, and they all see it happening.
Yeah, and that's the kind of thing where they've obviously decided that they need it to be quite easy to be a stealth badass, because it's like an arcadey kind of fun adventure, and it's just part of the gameplay. It's not like Hitman or something like, I don't know, like Splinter Cell or whatever, where sneaking around and being undetected is a huge part of the game.
Well, there's always this generous option where if you get spotted, you've got the option to go out guns blazing, whereas in true stealth titles or whatever, like Splinter Cell, it's mission over. Well, at least the first couple anyway. It is quite a funny thing, though, isn't it? Hiding in the grass, killing one, whistling another one over, and then you might as well be hiding in the corpses of this mountain of corpses you've built. And I admit I've done that loads. I've been getting, I've been leveling myself up by killing herds of deers, right, one at a time, sort of thing.
Robot deer.
Yeah, because they give you more points, like for killing them stealthily. I don't know. I think my only criticism with the game, and it's not even really a criticism with the game. I think I'm blaming myself for it. It's just, and it's a criticism that Liam in the office has had as well. It's still an open world game, and because there's been so many lately, because the market's so saturated, it's not original enough that you forget that. Unfortunately, there are still collectibles, side missions, but I mean, is that a problem with the game? Well, or is it just the game, the industry of it? I don't know.
I feel like it's drawn so much inspiration from different sectors. It's kind of like they played all the favourite games and what can we pull from what's good about all our favourite games? We'll pour it into one game. It's like that's how I feel about it. It's like all the best aspects from all the best games is exactly how I would sum it up.
To me, when I look at it, the biggest comparisons are with The Witcher, because of the way the world is presented, the way the side quests are given to you, because they're given weight and everything. But it's taken it's taken stuff from, like I said earlier, one of the best games of the last few years, in my opinion. If you're going to steal from anything, steal from The Witcher. It made me even question, did CD Projekt help them out a little bit?
Yeah, I wondered that afterwards, because they tweeted each other, didn't they? Little fan pictures. They've drawn Geralt and Aloy high-fiving CD Projekt Red, congratulated them. And I can imagine there's a lot of mutual respect between them, because they have arguably created two of the most vibrant open-world games of the decade.
Last few years,
and obviously it's one of them. You're going to notice, if this was your first ever open-world game, I can't imagine how enthusiastic and blown away you would be about this. But unfortunately, if you've played one of them first, and normally you would have played The Witcher 3 first, you'll notice.
So I think we need to move on to the comments in a second, but this is just to tie this up. Do you think this is like the pinnacle of this is as good as this genre is going to get in its current form, right? Without changing quite drastically or adding new stuff, because it's got it's got the bandit camps, the towers, all of the side quests. Structurally, it is, to me, the ultimate kind of open world thing. Yeah. Because I'm saying ultimate, not best. I'm saying this is the exact personification of the genre, if you ask me.
Yeah.
Do you think what has to happen now for open world games to be interesting? Because this is as far as it's going to go without them changing stuff.
They have to rip off Horizon Zero Dawn, don't they?
Add robot dinosaurs.
Add robot dinosaurs.
Robot dinosaurs. Yeah. The
Witcher 4 is going to be fucking amazing. Okay, so let's move on to the comments then. These comments are given to us on our Patreon feed. If you want to get access to that, it's $1 a month is all you have to pay, and then you can send us in your comments, and then we will read them out and respond to them on this podcast. So the first comment is from our patron, Jackie Sniper. What I want to know is, could I jump into Mass Effect Andromeda without playing the previous games? I know I really shouldn't, but there's just too many other games I'd rather play than work my way through the Mass Effect backlog.
Okay, so Mass Effect Andromeda is set. The story starts in between Mass Effect 2 and 3.
Yeah.
At that point, they send away a Pathfinder mission to a new galaxy to try and inhabit it. So basically, they're in deep sleep for like 500 years or something like that. So by the time they get to Andromeda, the timeline is now beyond the third original Mass Effect story, but it's no connection whatsoever. It's basically its own new story blossoming, and they don't know what happened to Commander Shepard and the end of Mass Effect 3. There's no kind of context at all for them. It's like, this is a new adventure. In answer to your question, no, you do not need to have played the first three. It's a complete standalone story on its own.
I mean, you're going to miss some very backstory and maybe details about the races and the technology and things like that. But that's all. You'll just be picking that up as if it was a new experience anyway, because that would be in the game regardless of the last trilogy existed or not. But there's definitely going to be some nods and some little Easter eggs and stuff like that you might not appreciate. But
essentially, you're jumping into a brand new story in a brand new setting with brand new characters.
However, the Mass Effect trilogy is one of the
so why haven't you played
trilogy. Get playing it.
That's the biggest question. Why haven't you played the damn original?
Okay, so John Patrick Goodwin says, I'm curious, what are your feelings towards remakes? For me, there are some games which are brilliant and could just be remade with better graphics, and that's all that is needed. And remakes on the whole, I think, is okay, but there's been a bit of a saturation problem in the last few years, I think, where just remakes of games that are just literally a couple of years old. We've covered it with videos on the channel in the past, but
it's a bit of a unusual one because they're not remaking the classics, they're remaking the ones that are easiest to remake. The ones that they can just make the graphics HD, like Assassin's Creed, what was it, 2 and 3? Come on.
Yeah, it's
and they did Metal Gear Solid, every Metal Gear Solid apart from the first one in HD because it's too much effort and it's so lazy. When I heard that they were doing an Elder Scrolls remake, I was like, oh, what are we going to get? Fucking Skyrim. Come on. Can you imagine being, 16, 17-year-old kid playing a Witcher 3 and then you hear on the internet, oh, Final Fantasy 7 and Baldur's Gate 2, they're great RPGs. And you look at Final Fantasy 7 and you see a couple of triangles stuck on a square and his name's Cloud. And can you blame them for not wanting to play it? I mean, sometimes graphics aren't everything, but it does help.
Easy remakes are made quite often, but Final Fantasy 7 maybe wasn't. They actually are making a new game, pretty much, aren't they?
Well, that's it. Yeah, they're building it from the ground up. It's kind of like what they're doing with the Crash Bandicoot series now.
Yeah. Ratchet and Clank as well.
It's a big difference between remaking and remastering, isn't
exactly.
And finally, Chris Thorburn asks, my question for you guys is, what will be the outcome of this corruption, loss of integrity and greed that has plagued the gaming industry? Well, I hope you're not talking about us, Chris.
There are certain negative aspects to the game industry. We can all agree that some of the practices are wrong. Let's talk hypothetically. If the market was to crash and like worst case scenario, then indie games would take over. It's that simple because they're so cheap to make these days that indie games are the future. I mean, they will fill the gap that the AAA games will leave. So I don't see there's going to be a huge crash like there was in 1983 because games were so expensive to make back then and there was no indie potential. But these days you can make a game and get it up on Steam and sell it with very little overhead completely. So people aren't ever going to stop making games and there'll always be good games. You'll just have to find them elsewhere.
It's certainly not a healthy ecosystem though, for several reasons, not all bad reasons either. It's growing and developing so quickly that it's quite hard to know, it's quite hard to plan ahead and come up with laws and stuff like that to cover all of the new problems that can emerge from technological developments like online gaming and stuff. And
when you say indie, people just cringe and they think of Steam Greenlight. They think of all the games like that. But no, there's so many great games coming out year on year, and people just aren't paying them attention because it's a lot easier to notice how bad Activision have been doing.
Well, the marketing of those things is so much louder that the people's awareness of Call of Duty and Activision is a lot greater than like The Witness or whatever. And The Witness is probably one of the best known indie games from last year. So that's why I'm saying it's not a healthy ecosystem currently.
Consumers need to be more aware and need to do the research. Exactly, be responsible for their own. I mean, they don't make it easy for us when they try and dupe us with false advertising and representing parts of games that just aren't there. So having gone through that. All that, and especially in this last couple of years, it's the onus is on us to be more responsible and to do our research a little bit more when we're picking up games. And if we all do that collectively, and we be a bit more like aware of this and be a bit more intelligent about where we put our money and things like that, then the industry will naturally adapt to that because our money will be going elsewhere. They won't be going into these big games that promise a lot but delivered very little. Don't always look for the negative. Always try and shine the beacon like we did with our CD Projekt Red video. We should hold people up, shine a light on them, show people that it can be done right, and just let them lead an example for the rest of the industry. I think that we need to focus a little bit more on the positives, and that's my rant over.
Buy more indie games.
So we're heading towards another market crash. So that's the Pretty Good Gaming Podcast, episode 3. Thanks a lot for watching, guys. If you do support us on Patreon, we will be throwing another bonus podcast your way today. We'll be discussing the Nintendo Switch, Zelda Breath of the Wild, and Night in the Woods, which apparently is a good game according to Jake. We'll see you there.